How many of you know Chobani? Good. So I was going to try to sell you yogurt, but I think I don't have to do that. So I'm going to tell you the secret. I'm from Turkey. I grew up eastern part of Turkey by the Euphrates River, a small village called İliç. And my family, for generations, made yogurt, cheese, sheep farming, kind of nomadic life. And that's the environment I grew up. And then I went to school, boarding school, studied political science, and then I got in trouble with the government and started publishing some newspapers. And so I had to get out of the country. And I was in a supermarket, and I was talking to a friend of mine. I said, I'm going to go to France. And one customer in the supermarket said, why would you go to France? I said, well, I like their books. And I have to get out, so I think I'm going to go to France. He said, no, go to America. And at that time, I said, I would never go to that country, man. It's the troublemaking of the whole world, and that's why we're struggling here for our rights and everything else, so I would never go there. But he said something at that moment. I don't understand why. I don't remember not why. But the next day I found the guy. I said, how can I go? So I found an agent, and you can come here to learn English. So I said, that's cool. And I picked the school, and she said, where do you want to go? And I said, what do you have? She says, I got New York, I got Massachusetts, I got California, I got Florida. And I said, New York is cool. And then he opened the New York map and said, where in New York do you want to go? And that was the first time I understood New York was a state, not a city. And I said, I want to be close to those big buildings, but not right there. So when I came here in October 15, 1994, I understood I was in Long Island. Yeah. And I had $3,000 in my pocket. And the first month, 2,000 of them was gone. And then I found my way to upstate. And when I went to upstate, I realized how landscape was so close to where I grew up on the eastern part of Turkey, where the mountainside was. And I felt home. And I say this because it was the first time I felt closer to home in America. So when my father came and visited, I put some cheese in his breakfast table. And the first comment he made is, can you find me some better cheese? I said, no, that's it. That's what I can find. And in that moment, he said, you should do something here. You should do some cheese. And it was the first time I said to my father, I said, what, are you nuts? I mean, I didn't travel for thousands of miles from the other part of the world to come here to make exactly what I was making home. So why didn't I stay home? But again, he was smart and he saw it, and I started my cheese business after a while, and importing started. And I started Euphrates Cheese. It was a small startup, living in the factory, making cheese, trying to sell, all that pain. And I went 2 years of the most difficult time of my life, trying to survive. But I almost survived, and I said, okay, now I can get settled and, do some fun things. And I was sitting in my office one day, and I saw an ad. I was going through my junk mails, and I saw an ad that said, fully equipped yogurt plant for sale. I'm not kidding. So, and when I look at the ad, and I, just like any other junk mail, I throw it to the garbage can. And I was smoking, and I'm still smoking. So. But I quit in the middle a couple of times. But I was smoking and having a tea, and my garbage can is really mess. And after 20 or 30 minutes later, I reached back to my garbage can, and I picked that ad. And now it's dirty, has all these marks of cigarettes and teas, and I looked it back, and there was this big picture on the front. It said 1920. It's a picture of outside of the plant. On the back, there was small pictures of section of the plant. And I called the number. It must be about 6, 7 o'clock in the evening. And I called the number, and I reached out to the real estate agency. And he said it's about an hour and a half from where I was. So the next day, I went there to visit. And I went there. It's all about out of curiosity, really. I have no plans of anything. And I went there. There was this guy, his name is Rich. He was a plant superintendent, like a production manager. So he took me around the plant. Let me describe you how it was. It's middle of nowhere. There's this big road, like not a huge road, but long road. Across the street, there's a bar. It's called Croches. In front of the Croches, there are bikers, and they're having beer and smoking. Across the street, there's this old building. It says 1920 on the top. And then you walk into the plant inside, like waters are coming down, machines are shut down, people were repacking some stuff, but you have this sense of cemetery, like something is dying. It's almost dying. So when I finished the tour, and I can't tell the numbers, how much they were asking, and that's kind of caught my interest, and I wasn't sure if it was 10 was missed, because it was like very small number. And the company who was closing was Kraft. And the plant was there for 95 years, and they were making cheese along the way. And by the way, they said that they invented Philadelphia cream cheese in that plant. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what they said. It's a great invention, man. So, and then towards the end, they were making Breyers yogurt. When I left, I called my attorney. I said, I just saw a plant. It's a great price. I don't know why, but I want to buy this plant. So my attorney, Mario, said, well, are you fucking crazy? He said, you just killed yourself over this cheese place. You haven't even made out of yet. What are you're going to buy this? And he was making sense, right? It's a big corporation closing the plant. It's a very old plant. You're buying as is. And when you say as is, that was the first time I understood what as is means. So for the 100 years, if they put dirt into the ground, you're buying all the responsibility of it. So he's a Turkish guy. He can go to jail for that. So I said, yeah, you're right. It doesn't make any sense. The next day I would wake up. I just couldn't help myself. And I would call him again. I said, look, man, we got to do this. As I was trying to convince him, he said, look, I care about you. You're like a son to me. But I still charge you $300 an hour. So, it's your call. With two bankers, they came up with an idea of SBA, Small Business Administration. And I didn't know about that before. It's just they had a 504 program. 504 is, so the SBA says to the bank, give this crazy guy the money to buy the plant. I'll guarantee 40% of it, or 50%, I'm not sure. And then you pay 50%, so everybody's happy. So if he makes it, we're all good. If he doesn't make it, you're in 40%, we are in 40%. Whatever is the worth of the plant, we will sell and try to get our money. And it wasn't a huge money, like around $1 million or something. August 17, 2005, I had a key for the plant. And there were 55 people lost their jobs when that plant closed. So I hired 4 of them. So the 4 guys, me and my yogurt master, we sit around the table. That's my first board meeting. So Mike, he's this character. He's still in the company. He said, what are we going to do now? And I will say this to you because it's in the history of Chobani, this is the most significant thing that we've done that day. I said, Mike, we got to paint the walls, man. He said, what wall? I said, this outside that says 1920, that all outside, that white paint, is horrible. We got to do something about it. And Mike said, why do you care? This wall outside never been painted for the last, I don't know how many years. And what I said is, I don't know what we're going to do next, which I really didn't have an idea what we were going to do next. But that wall looks bad. Let's do something about it. Let's go to the Ace store, let's get some paints, and let's paint them. And that's what we did that summer. 4 of us, 5 of us. I even came up with some cool ideas how to paint the windows blue around the windows and the table, the doors red, and still there. August 2005, we had the plant. September 2007, we launched Chobani. I'll give you some numbers now, after 5.5 years. We are over $1 billion in sales. That 4 people, now over close to 3,000 people. We made that plant the largest yogurt plant in the world. We built a plant in Idaho in less than 1 year, 1 million square feet, and 4 times larger than the world's largest yogurt plant, which is our plant in South Edmonton. We bought a company in Australia, and Chobani is now in Australia. We are launching in UK. We launched it in UK. And we invested almost $800 million in plants and infrastructures and equipment and capital expenditure. The best part is we are still 100% independent. We did not bring 1 penny from private equity guys or the hedge funds or the partners or anybody. So some expert says this company is the fastest growing startup that stayed independent ever, that went to 0 to billion in 5 years. So, and a lot of yogurts. I said that one of the best things that we did early on is paint the walls, because including myself, none of us 4 people knew what we were going to do next. But I had a plant. I knew I wanted to make yogurt. And instead of sitting down and wondering what I'm going to do next, we did something about it. At that moment, the only thing that would come to my mind was paint the walls. In the action of painting the walls, we came up with the next idea. We came up with the idea of changing the fillers to 95 millimeter. We came up with the idea of making private label for some others. We came up with so many different ideas on the way of doing something. And it became the way of Chobani, that Chobani people will never sit down, wonders what we're going to do next. We always find our solutions or answers on the action of doing something. This is not a story of San Francisco or Silicon Valley or New York City or Brooklyn. I have all respect for all of those people. It's a story of South Edmonton. South Edmonton is a very small town 4 hours from here in upstate New York. And I am from another small town from very far away from somewhere else. And none of us at Chobani has ran companies or made companies like this before. None of us. Now we have some people that work for us that worked in other companies, but none of us did this before. None of us had business degrees. None of us had a very creative mind that we put in the work out there before. None of us did. But what we found out is during this journey is we found out what we were made of. Some of us found out that we were good marketers. Some of them we found out we were a good brand guy. Some of them we found out that we were, creative. So the best part of journeys like this, and I'm sure my colleagues would say the same thing, is the discovery of self, what you discover about yourself. And along the discovery, you find out is why you do what you do. What's the purpose of doing yogurt or glasses or what you do? And how true are you with your purpose? Because that's the most amazing thing about this type of journeys. And we're so proud that the day one, we opened those old factories, 4 walls, open to the community. We became the community of South Edmonton. And we made sure that whatever we made was not about the people who worked in the plant. It was about the farmers, the contractors, the small businesses there. anybody who lived in there owned this journey. So the most proudest things for Chobani is seeing that little community coming back up. Not by preaching, not by teaching, but just watching and being part of it. There were people who would come to me and say, this happened in front of my eye. When this town was going, after 100 years, it's the worst time of its history, where this plant was closing. And it turned out to be one of the best things happened, that plant being closed. Because now it's 100 times better than it was before. And being part of rebuilding the whole thing together, it built everybody. We take credit for what they did to us. They take credit what we did for them. It's this interaction. Along this interaction, you find out is really what makes success happens. What makes things turn around and make it even better. It's not about how sophisticated you are, how much you know, how much education you have, how much driven you are. It's really what you're made of. What are you going to do when the things get really, really tough? And what kind of support you're going to get? Who's your colleagues that you're going to look inspired by? Because it's going to be dark days. And what I found out is the true value of this country was living on those small villages where hard work, honesty, right? Farmers, people helping each other, and truly believing that things can be done. Not just speaking, but in action of doing. And we learned all of those. They implement every single those golden rules into Chobani. And that has been our source. Now we are where we are, being independent, having a great brand, and making a lot of yogurts, as trying to hold on to our early beginning beliefs. I wish that people in this room one day can start whatever they can start and stay independent. Stay away from those financial guys. And make it to where it made it to, and have an impact on whatever they do, on the people. So that's my wish, and I hope this story of Chobani can have a little bit of effect on your dreams. And when you're doing it, you eat a lot of yogurt also.